Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at something pretty central to how we see global politics, right? The image of the U.S. president.
Hmm.
For most of us, it's this really ingrained picture, a powerful leader making huge decisions, kind of like a beacon of democracy.
Right, and presidential elections are these massive global events that just reinforces that whole idea of authority, power.
Exactly. But what if that perception, the one we all kind of accept, isn't the whole story?
Okay.
So our deep dive today is focused on unpacking a really challenging perspective. It comes from a source titled The Illusion of Presidential Power.
Ah, okay. Illusion, that's a strong word.
It is, and this source basically argues that the power we think the president has is actually maybe a carefully crafted image or even a facade. It says there's more than meets the eye.
So it's questioning the very foundation of that perceived power.
Totally. It really pushes you to ask, well, what if presidents are, and this is a direct quote, mere puppets in a larger game?
Puppets.
Yeah. And that their visible power is just, quote, an illusion designed to distract and deceive us from the true rulers of the country. It's a pretty radical thought.
It really is. And this source, the illusion of presidential power, it doesn't pull any punches, like you said. It jumps right in, claiming that behind closed doors, there are powerful individuals and organizations who hold the reins of power.
Okay, so a hidden establishment kind of thing.
That's the idea, a
Yeah.
hidden establishment running the show.
So if the president is, as the source puts it, a facade, who are these people? Does the source name names or types?
It describes them as oligarchical movers and shakers.
Oligarchical. Okay, so we're talking about a small group with a lot of influence, probably wealth-related?
Yeah, that's the implication. Not just wealth, but concentrated, maybe entrenched power. The source says they control the government, but not by, sitting in the Oval Office themselves.
Right.
It's through their influence on policies and decisions.
Yeah.
It suggests a much more subtle, pervasive kind of control.
Influence. Okay. So how do these movers and shakers actually get things done? How do they exert that influence, according to the source?
Well, the source claims they have pawns in government positions, people inside the system who help push their agenda.
Pawns. Okay. And where do these powerful figures actually operate from? Are they just meeting in secret clubs or?
The source points specifically to institutionalized think tanks. It calls them places where they discuss their dastardly deeds without any public scrutiny.
Dastardly deeds. That's quite the loaded term. It definitely shows the author's perspective on this.
Oh, absolutely. It frames these actions as manipulative
Mhm.
against the public interest and all happening, out of sight.
It paints a really vivid picture, doesn't it? This hidden structure.
Hmm.
How does the source say it stays hidden? How does it maintain control?
This is where it gets really interesting. The source uses a very powerful analogy. It compares this hidden establishment to the wizard in The Wizard of Oz.
Ah, okay.
You see?
Man behind the curtain.
Exactly. Just like the wizard hid behind a carefully crafted image to maintain his power, the source suggests these elites hide behind their wealth and influence while operating in secrecy.
That makes a lot of sense as an analogy. It's all about managing what the public sees versus what's actually happening.
Precisely. And the source pushes the comparison further. It says, like the wizard who takes credit for solving problems.
Right.
These elites, according to the source, take credit for the actions of the government while remaining hidden from public view.
So the president, the visible leader, ends up being the one who takes the credit or the blame.
Exactly, while the real architects, in this view, stay completely offstage, unacknowledged.
Okay, so if that's the setup, what does it actually mean for the president, the person we do see? The source seems to have a pretty stark view of that role.
It absolutely does. The source basically argues the presidency itself has become nothing more than a mirage-like avatar.
A mirage-like avatar. Wow.
Yeah, created specifically to maintain the illusion of democracy. The idea is the president is a symbol, a projection of power, but not the real source of it.
And it goes further than that, doesn't it? Something about how they're chosen.
It does. It claims presidents are carefully selected and groomed by the hidden establishment to serve their interests.
Groomed. That really implies a lack of autonomy, doesn't it? So even if a president has their own beliefs, their own values, the source is saying they're ultimately tied to this bigger agenda.
That's the core argument, yes.
Mhm.
Even with own personal beliefs and values, they are, quote, ultimately beholden to the agenda of those in power.
And what happens if they push back, if a president tries to go off script?
Well, the source paints a pretty grim picture. If a president does try to challenge or deviate from this agenda, they are quickly reminded of their place and the consequences of going against the system. It suggests a very tightly controlled situation.
Hmm. Okay, I can already hear a counterargument forming. Someone might say, well, even if this is true, maybe it's a necessary evil, to maintain order and stability. Does the source tackle that?
It does, yeah. It anticipates that argument and refutes it pretty strongly. The source insists that the problem with this system is that it perpetuates inequality and injustice.
Ah, okay. So it's not leading to stability for everyone in this view.
Not at all. The source argues it actually prioritizes the interests of the few over the needs of the many.
So who benefits? Is it just this small elite group?
That's what the source claims. It says the interests of the elite few are put above the needs of the majority. And this leads to policies and decisions that benefit a select few while leaving the rest of society behind.
A fundamental imbalance then.
Right. And there's another layer to it.
Yeah.
The source argues that this whole illusion of presidential power does something else too. It serves as a distraction
A distraction from what?
from the true issues that plague our society. The idea is, while we're all focused on the president's latest tweet or speech, we often overlook the larger systemic issues that continue to oppress and marginalize communities.
Mm.
The source says we get so caught up in the political drama presented to us
Right.
that we fail to see the bigger picture.
Right. Distracted by the puppet show, so to speak, while the real issues go unaddressed.
That's the essence of the argument, yes.
Okay, so if this is the situation the source describes, what does it say we should do? It sounds like there's a call to action in there somewhere for society, maybe?
There absolutely is. For society overall, the source is pretty direct. It is time for society to see through this smoke and mirrors act.
See through the illusion.
Yes, and demand transparency and accountability from those who truly hold the reins of power. So it's about challenging the status quo, questioning the narratives we're fed.
And I imagine that's not just about external pressure. Does it talk about what individuals should do?
It does. It stresses that point. This kind of change cannot happen solely from external pressure. It also, quote, requires individuals to take accountability themselves and not blindly follow the narratives presented by those in power.
So it's on us, too. What does that look like?
The source emphasizes education and critical thinking. We must educate ourselves on important issues and critically analyze information presented to us.
Yeah.
It's about not just passively consuming information.
Right, actively engaging, questioning.
Exactly. And the source ties this directly to the end goal. It says, only then can we break free from these illusions and work towards a more equitable and just society. It's quite a powerful conclusion.
It really is.
Yeah.
So just to sort of recap the core idea here from the illusion of presidential power, it's arguing that this image we have of the U.S. president as this incredibly powerful figure is essentially a carefully crafted illusion.
Yeah. Designed to shield the true rulers of the country.
And the presidency itself, it's framed as nothing more than a mirage-like avatar, basically there to keep up the appearance of democracy. Right.
While this elite group continues to pull the strings behind the scenes, according to this source, anyway.
It's definitely a perspective that makes you think. A lot to chew on.
For sure.
And the source leaves us with this final kind of provocative thought. Only through acknowledging and challenging these illusions can we strive towards a more equitable and just society.
It puts the onus back on seeing things clearly.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? After hearing this deep dive into the source's ideas, what does critically analyzing information or challenging narratives actually look like for you in your daily life? Something to maybe explore for yourself.